What's up, builders? So today I want to go over advanced function calling inside of the agent node. And for those of you that are unaware, this is Voiceflow. I came out with this agent node a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to showcase some of the stuff I've been testing out in here with this recent build. And this is going to use both Voiceflow and N8N for a couple of different function calls. So we're going to just jump right in here. I want to show you some of the things that I like inside of here as far as dynamic capabilities. All right, this is a regular greeting message, nothing crazy here. I hit this first agent node, how can I help you? And I'm just using this as an introductory router based on some intents. And maybe this is something that you've had previously in builds where you have a bunch of different intent types. It jumps around the canvas. I just threw it all in this agent node, and there's no function calls in here, but I want to qualify the type of call that I'm dealing with. So if I say, yeah, my garage door is broken, I need someone to fix it, which sounds like a pretty normal request. Sorry to hear that. Let's get this resolved for you. Could you please provide me with your zip code so I can check if you're in our service area? All right, handled that great. What actually happened here is the router hit a pathing here for garage door repair. I'm setting a job type to a specific value because I'm going to use this later. And then I hit this zip code and availability. And this actually, there's a lot happening in this one node in this interface, and that's where I want to make kind of the main topic of the discussion today. So if I enter my zip code here, 07444, thank you for providing your zip code. Good news, your location is within our service area. Let me check the available appointment times for you. This will only take a moment. And you'll notice that I have two separate messages here and two separate bubbles. And this is not me instructing the agent or hard coding a message bubble to do this, then that. This is all based on function calls and giving the agent proper context of how I want it to handle the responses from this function. So first one, zip code. It's in our service area. Now that I just make this value up? No, of course, I actually went and pulled information from their backend. I'll show you that here in a second, and verified that that zip code is actually within our service area. Because if you're building an agent for a home service franchise, guess what? They've got a lot of different locations, and their owners, their service areas butt up against each other. And you want to make sure that you are servicing the right zip codes for the right franchise location. So this is not optional. Like, this has to be dialed in. The second part of this, the first available appointment is on April 5th between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m., which is tomorrow morning. Will this time work for you? Would you prefer a different time slot? Do you have anything in the afternoon? And what happens here is this gives me immediately 12 to 4. Now, is this just because I went into the agent and said, okay, here are available times 8 to 12, 12 to 4. No, this is once again pulling actual availability from the dispatch board connected to the CRM of the franchise. This is real live availability that from a potential customer, I can now interact with on a chat interface and find a time that works for me. What are all available times for Sunday? Perfect. 8 to 12, 10 to 2, 12 to 4, 2 to 6. Do any of these times work for you? Yeah, 2 to 6. It's great. So then I can route to the next agent, which is customer information. Now I'm going to stop here and not enter my phone number and do all this because this is like actual customer data, account lookup stuff. But I wanted to show you that you can string these things together in an agent to get some pretty cool dynamic functionality. Now let's kind of peek under the hood, and then we'll try to mess around with some other dynamic stuff, and I'll show you what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this chat, but let's look at this booking agent. Okay, I have two functions sitting in this agent here. And for those of you that have not looked at the agent node yet, you hit this little plus sign, or you can actually hit community already created functions. All right, I wrote these from scratch. Zip code lookup looks up the zip code of the customer to verify our service location. It's going to take two input variables. One is my webhook to N8N, and the other is the zip code. Now look at the difference here. One of these says default value, which I have a variable stored here for my webhook URL that I've also masked as a secret. If I don't want that viewable, use the default value always. Perfect. Then I have the zip code. The LLM is actually going to collect this information, which you all saw just work a second ago. Now, let's look at all of these instructions, giving it, just a general, hey, couple of sentences, but then acknowledge the issue, ask the customer their zip code, call the function. But not only that, I'm actually going to dictate what happens based on what the function returns. So I have an in-service area path, out of service area path. And I want the agent to handle each of these situations in a different way. So if I go look at this function for zip code lookup, I'm going to hit this N8N webhook URL, wait for it to execute, then I'm going to parse it in a certain way that I want it, and then output a bunch of variables. Now you'll see this alternate location, alternate phone, alternate website. What is this? Let's look at our N8N workflow. So I have a webhook, which is what you saw in the Voiceflow function. I then am going to set a zip code and an email address, which I'm not currently using at the moment. I was for some testing with some custom launcher stuff. Then I am hitting a config, right? I'm actually going to hit a configuration for this franchise's backend to pull all of that information, because here's what you don't want. All right, you're going to create this. Give me all of the zip codes that your franchise currently services. And then you just have some manually constructed array of zip codes, because what's going to happen is that's going to change over time. And you don't want an email that says, hey, agent builder, you remember that hard-coded array that we made of zip codes? Yeah, I actually just added a new service area. Can you go in to your agent and modify that? No, that's not what you want to set up. What you want to do is dynamically pull the config from their CRM of their actual available zip codes, and then construct your own array. And once we do that, I have two set steps basically here that allow me to pull all of the zones, combine all the zip codes in one array. I probably could have done this with two steps. And then I'm going to check as a very basic JavaScript function, is this zip code matching one of the values in our array? And if the answer is yes, I'm actually going to kick out up here and respond to this webhook with nothing. If it's in the service area, I have a blank webhook. Now, what is this out of service area branch here? I obviously showed you guys a successful one just a few minutes ago. This is actually going to go and pull, if it is out of the service area, I want to find which franchise location that the customer can be serviced by and give them the appropriate contact details in order to help their problem, because then the lead stays in the franchise, right? And everybody wins. And you don't get this chatbot, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're not in our service area. Let us know if you need anything else, which is like the typical dumb chatbot response. So if I reset this, I have a broken spring. Sorry to hear about that. Let's get this resolved. Can you please provide me your zip code? 23455, which is in Virginia. It's not in New Jersey. So we know this is out of service. What is this response going to look like? Takes a little bit longer because there's some more calculations going on. Unfortunately, it looks like your location is outside of our service area. However, I can direct you to an alternate service option. Precision, Virginia Beach. Here's a phone number. Here's their website. I recommend reaching out to them for assistance with your repair. Boom. Click on this link. Look at that. Opens right to their website. Now, it is helpful, obviously, that this franchise has this information available, because otherwise I would have to construct it myself and input it as part of, the build. But anyways, if this goes through, instead of an empty webhook body, what I will pass back is the location, phone number, and the website that gets extracted from that API request. And then it feeds it back into my Voiceflow function. Zip code lookup, and then it gets handled and returned to me. That way I can then access this alternate location, phone, and website. You look at my pathing, out of service area, in service area, some of my variables here. I can then communicate these different paths and these output variables back to my agent node. Call zip code lookup. If it's in service area, boom. If it's out of service area, save the following variables from the function output: alternate location, alternate phone, alternate website. Apologize and inform the customer they're outside their service area. Provide the information to the customer as an alternative service option. And it just works. Just gives it to them. Now, let's go on to check availability, because if you remember, I had one bubble, execute function, zip code lookup. Oh, you're in our service area. Congrats. Now, because I know you're in our service area, let's go ahead and look up our earliest available times so we can give you our real availability. Because as you can imagine, a customer-facing chatbot that's sitting on a website, the primary call to action for this chatbot is to book jobs, right? That's why companies pay money for you as an agent builder to build them something valuable. What is the ROI? This is a self-service book jobs. Every job booked on this chatbot is a phone call to your customer service reps that you just saved. You don't need to pick up the phone if you have a self-service chatbot that can just book jobs right from your website, right? So we're going to hit, as soon as zip code lookup and it's in service, you're going to call this function. So I have two functions sitting in this agent node that are going to get called pretty much in parallel. Not exactly in parallel, but if zip code is in service, call this immediately. Boom. Didn't, and you saw that with the agent. One message bubble. Congrats, you're in zip code. Let me look up your zip code. Boom. Our first available appointment. And that's both those function calls happening side by side from a user perspective. So if I go into check availability, I once again have my URL, default value. I'm taking in a job type because I actually need this jobs type to construct the URL path for my API call in the back end, and also the zip code, which I have also just recently collected from this node, from sitting in this node. If I go to the function, check availability, same thing. I'm passing zip code and job type and the body of this webhook. And we're going to do an await fetch of the URL with the config body that we're passing here. And I'm going to handle this how I want inside of this Voiceflow function. Now, one of the questions that you might have is, Connor, why did you include N8N in this particular workflow? Couldn't you have just written both of these in a Voiceflow function block? That would be a good question for you to ask, okay? Here's why I went the N8N route for this particular situation. Number one, I think the debugging and pulling config data and messing around with schemas, it's way easier to do in N8N from a UX, from a developer UX. Number two, there's a good chance that I'm going to use these workflows in other areas outside of the Voiceflow environment. So I have no problem spending the time to make them in N8N, knowing that they have some reusability, which I would not get in an exclusive Voiceflow syntax function, if that makes any sense. Now, that's not a free choice, obviously, because then if this automation is going to run lots of times, then I have two backend as a service platforms that I would be paying for this particular solution, which one is Voiceflow, the other is N8N. But of course, I can always host my own N8N instance, which I will do for this particular use case. So that becomes less of a concern for me. Okay, I'm checking availability. This particular organization uses a custom scheduler connected to their CRM. And as you can imagine, they have different job types because technicians have special skill qualifications. For example, electricians, you're not going to send a first-year apprentice to do a panel job, probably, at least not by himself. So from an ops perspective, you need a way to dictate which of your technicians have the appropriate skills for the appropriate job types that you are booking. So you as an agent builder have to be able to handle different job types. So once again, I'm going to pass the zip code in the job type, which you saw from my webhook and that function, back into this config. I'm going to edit some fields here, which I believe are, has to do with booking buffers information. And then I'm actually going to construct the URL that I need in order to pass along this API call here. So this is just, once again, just me prepping for the actual availability request. I'm not going to pull this actual URL for you here because this is a private API that is not accessible to the public. But then here's something that you also have to take into consideration, right? This gets availability and outputs a JSON object that has a bunch of Z times, which a user is not really going to be able to read that and understand what's going on. So this function basically presents the information in a much more viewable way and converts it to the appropriate time zone, right? Because we're dealing with Eastern time here for this particular build. In case you're wondering here, no, that's not what I wanted to say. This, the doc type here. So this is basically an error that's popping up because I click through this here instead of actually having the webhook come in. I'm just using this to showcase you what's kind of going on here. So no worries there. Anyways, I've been saying a lot of stuff here. Let's look at the output variables. So I have a formatted output and time slots here. This is a very basic success and error path, nothing crazy here. Let's go back to the agent instructions. Call check availability using formatted output, one of our output variables. Offer the customer the first available appointment time. Work with the customer to select an appointment time that works for them. That was showcased when I was going back and forth and saying, hey, what about tomorrow? What are all your times available for this date? Like, you have given this agent a function output that is formatted in a certain way that has a bunch of information, a bunch of real-time availability information. That is how you make it dynamic. The other thing that's nice is you'll notice this access to knowledge base is clicked on. Trigger the knowledge base when a user asks a general question instead of providing information about booking an appointment. So, for example, if I go in here, I say, "Hi, how can I help you? I have a broken spring. Sorry to hear about that. Could you please provide me with your zip code so I can check if you're in our service area?" Now I'm sitting in this agent node here. I ask a question. Do you have any positive reviews on your company? Not sure I can trust you. Thank you for asking. Locally owned, 5-star average, 95.2% of our reviews are being 5 stars. Our technicians are professionally trained, certified, drug tested, background checked. Where is this at now in the conversation logic? It's in the same place. It's sitting in this node. I have not left this node at all. And I'm waiting for the customer to provide me the information and for the appropriate functions to be executed in order to path out of this node, which allows a much more dynamic interaction set instead of, this is a fixed block. Okay, give me your first name. Okay, give me your last name. Give me your email. Let me check if this email exists. This is how we get out of that fixed form flow build and we inject some dynamic capabilities while using functions and providing them back to the agent in order to craft a really, really positive experience for customers that use your agents on their websites to do various things. Sure, I'll give you my zip code. It gets back on track. Here's the answer to your general question that you just asked randomly. Let's get back on track. Could you please share your zip code so I can check if you're in our service area? Great news. Here's our first available appointment. Real-time availability. Will this time work for you? I just checked with my wife. She won't be home anything the next day. No problem. April 6th, 8 to 12. I think about it. It's a bit early. Anything later in the day? Immediate response. No thinking. And that is because you've already provided the necessary information to the agent in order to have this conversation, because the payload from your function call is sitting in the agent. This works great. I'm now pathing out of this agent, going in the customer information where I will collect its details and do the same exact thing to get everything that I need in order to book this job direct to the technician's calendar. No human interface necessary. This is how you build valuable agents. This is how you make them dynamic. This is how you solve problems. I think this is a pretty good first crack at me incorporating some of these agent nodes in real builds and being pretty pleased overall with the process. So write those functions, give it the proper context, give it the proper pathing, and guide this agent to handle all of the things it needs to. Because I think we're going to start building some really, really cool stuff moving forward. Got any questions? Feel free to shout out. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks.